Always remember, your focus determines your reality. Stay close to me, and you'll be safe.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on my channel today. I am with my buddy Zylo. How you doing, Zylo?
Hey, what's up, brother?
Yeah, so in this video, we are going to go over GA defensive and offensive stuff and how you want to implement Padme into your GA. With this upcoming GA championship, it's going to be very important, I think, to get the max banners and make sure that you don't lose. Of course, you want those juicy rewards, right? So let's go into that, and hope you guys enjoy the video today. All right, so for Padme and how you want to use Padme, me and Zylo have gone over and what we think is the best. Depending on your GP ranks, you can kind of determine what you want to use for your Padme and your teams that you're going to be setting also on defense. And Zylo, what do you think? And what is the main thing that we went over and how you want to set Padme and what team you want to be running there for your offense?
Well, I definitely love your arena team for sure with the Yoda comp, but I think with going with the Triumvirate with the new Jedi synergies, right, with Ahsoka, General Kenobi, and then Anakin on there, of course, that synergy is just so good together, and it's not too consuming from your other teams too as well. So it makes sense for a great offensive Darth Revan counter, and it's just a team that we have to keep together. And the fifth, we decided on 3PO. It's just that 3PO is too good to take off the team, right?
Yeah, these teams with Padme, you need him. You can't really get around these Malak teams without him. So I do think, yeah, 3PO is a must-have.
Yeah, I mean, the synergy with his protection up with the team just gives them more survivability. They have more synergy with another mass assist. And Confuse is just a great debuff at controlling Malak and controlling Sith Troopers. So I really think that 3PO makes the most sense on this team as the fifth.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that's kind of how we think about Padme right now and what you want to use her. You for sure want to use her on offense versus these Malak teams. If you're lucky enough to not see Malak in your GAs, man, this team is going to steamroll them. You don't even need 3PO if there are no Malaks, but if there are Malaks, 3PO is a must-have, I think, in our opinion. So that's kind of how Padme goes when you want to think and use her in these GA teams. All right, so next up, guys, we're going to go over Darth Revan. This is a must-have team on defense, just in general. You don't want to be using these guys on offense too much because there are now a few counters to the Malak team. And like we just mentioned, Padme is a great counter to Malaks now, so there's no need for you to have to mirror match. And those sometimes can be kind of annoying depending on the speeds and everything. So you agree with me there, Zylo?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes more sense too because the three teams that we're going to the two other teams I should mention that we're going to dive into later, they definitely make more sense for offense because they're just staple hard counters for so many teams. It's definitely just about having that tier frame of mods, and with the Padme team on offense again, it makes it so much more easier with your mods. And Darth Revan's, you see him in arena every day, and even if you have the counters or mirror matches, you're still struggling to climb through those teams every day. And mods make this team completely different from every aspect, and every time you face somebody different, so it just makes more sense. And he's the top dog. Him and Darth Revan and Malak just makes sense to be on defense every day.
Yeah, there's really nothing to be said about them not being on defense. They're like a must-have for sure. So that's kind of how we think about Darth Revan and Malaks. Definitely be on defense. Don't worry too much about them on offense because there's just so many counters you can use versus these Malak teams. So there you guys have it. So up next, guys, is going to be Jedi Revan teams, and we've kind of come an agreement with these guys can be used either or, offensively or defensively. This can be kind of tricky depending on your GP levels. If you do happen to have a lot of these teams filled in with, and you have like a really good Darth Revan Malak team, you got a really good Padme team, you really got a good CLS, you can kind of swap these around a little bit. So what I can go ahead.
So this is where the depth aspect comes in, right?
Yeah.
We mentioned mods in the Darth Revan team and the Padme team. So now this is where, can you beat Darth Revan with either CLS or Padme and sacrifice Jedi Knight Revan for defense, or is he too much of an offensive presence for you, and it makes sense to use as another hard counter, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of like how I feel about these like setting the defenses and who you want to be kind of keeping in and who you want to be swapping out. Like for 3PO, we kind of needed him to be there for the Padme teams, but then you have versus these like really top end Maliks. I do think Yoda is a really good fourth and taking out Ahsoka in the Padme team, but if you don't want to use that and you want to save Yoda, you can definitely not do that. Save him for a Jedi Revan team, put that on either offense or defense, and it works just as well, I think, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I feel. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, and definitely, because the Jedi faction in general just has so much more depth, right? So Jedi Knight Revan, you have so much control with it on offense, even against mirror matches too. So if you have, some extra Jedi laying around, like, your Hermit Yoda or your Bear Sophie for a healer, your Qui-Gon Jinn, if you've invested a little bit in him, is a lot of fun in a Jedi Knight Revan team. There's plenty more. Plo Koon, there's plenty of Jedi that you can squeeze in there and make it still an offensive threat.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Jedi is just one of those really fun factions in the game right now. You can just do so much with them. A lot of different versatility to their team and who you want to run. So I think that's kind of like what you want to go for here. You can either use them offensively or defensively depending on what your Padme looks like. If you have Darth Revan Malak, a lot of factors can be put into play here, and depending on what you want to use with your Jedi Revan. So that's kind of how we both feel about this. So up next, guys, we went over so far Padme, Darth Revan, Jedi Revan, and now we're going to talk about CLS. CLS, let's bring it up on the screen really fast, is a great counter to a lot of these different teams in the game. It can beat a lot of these Jedi Revan teams. It can even beat Darth Malak and Darth Revan teams. This is a really great counter all around. You do need some pretty good mods. Zylo, you want to talk about the mods a little bit?
Yeah, so you have to have Thrawn in the team as the fit too, and then this is also where 3PO comes in as a CLS comp, right? So the team is very speed dependent, so not a lot of people are going to have for an offensive counter unless they have the depth in mods. So it's definitely all around just a great hard counter, because offensively you can run just CLS Han and Chewie and get some extra banners, or you can place it down on defense with like a chase comp, and it's still such a strong defensive minded team as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's very similar to that of trying to figure out who you want to use with Padme and like what team you want to run there. But I do think, and I agree, that 3PO needs to be on a Padme, and that's going to take away from your CLS. So with CLS not be, or with I'm talking about 3PO here. With 3PO not being there, guys, kind of puts you at a disadvantage versus some of these teams. It's going to be really hard to kill even a Traya team, but you can like a 3v5 it or a 4v5 with using CLS, Han, Chewie, and if you want to run R2 there, you can run R2 there. But like those guys can just take out a lot of different teams. You can take out Night Sisters, you can take out, if the guys are running Ewoks, a lot of different teams in the game right now. So
yeah. And then Rebels too in general, this again is like affiliated with the Jedi tag for Jedi Knight Revan. There's a lot more depth and offense, like you have your SRPs and your Biston for Fleet Arena and everything like that too. So it makes a lot of sense on offense, and it has its perks on defense too as well.
Yeah, so I think here you can really use CLS either or offensively or defensively. Just depends on what everything else looks like when you're talking about your GA and your teams in GA. So that's kind of how CLS is for now. Okay, so up next, guys, we're going to go and chat about Traya and how you want to use her. Typically, you really want to use her on offense. There isn't much that she does too well on defense, especially if you're at a high enough GP to where that you can use, like we had mentioned earlier, Darth Revan and all these other guys. So a quick thing we want to note here is that you do not want to place Padme on defense. Traya is a definite hard counter to this team. And if you do that and you want to place Padme on defense, you're losing out on not giving them or letting them get all the max banners, because you can get kind of 3v5 Traya versus Padme. So we really recommend not using that. You think that's a good point right there, Zylo?
Yeah, and again, the Padme team, like, if you're using it as a defensive presence, it takes away 3PO, because 3PO, again, is a must-have team on defense, because if 3PO is not on the team, it's also a Palpatine counter, too, as well. So the Palpatine Triumvirate, it's too consuming of a team to put down on defense with 3PO, or the Padme team in general. it serves its purpose way more better as a Darth Revan. Like that's what it's definitely intended for, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so for Traya and how you want to use Traya, definitely you want to save her for offense. She can counter a lot of different teams. Night Sisters, for example, like for what I like to use Traya, Scion, and sometimes you can throw in Dooku. Depending on how well their Night Sisters are, those three can really just 3-5 an entire Night Sister team. Depending on how well they are, if you are facing like a fully maxed out team, I probably would go with Nihilus in there because Annihilates are really clutch at times, but that's just how we kind of feel. You want to add anything to here, Zylo?
Yeah, and the Triumvirate, it's just such an amazing three-man team. Again, like we were talking a bit about this before. Like this team is a quick 3-man, 60 banners. You can add your extra. Like for me personally, SWGoH is sometimes my fourth in that team. I got the Zeta on it from back in the day, and it's an easy team where you can walk in there in some scenarios just using the Triumvirate and get you an easy 59, 60 banners for sure.
Yeah, those easy points are so important in these GAs. That's kind of like how you win games pretty much in these. So that's kind of how we feel, guys, about Traya, and definitely want to save her for offense. We're going to just quickly and briefly go over Scoundrels and then the two new factions, or I guess the two new characters that really make factions really cool for offense, and those are going to be Shaak T, and now we have Newt/Count Dooku with a new Separatist. So first off, we're going to talk about Qira and the Scoundrels. Do you want to go over this really quickly, Zylo?
Yeah, so we definitely all agree right now that the Qira team is something that's a lot better for offense. So like for example, if you want to do Qira Nest, you have that flexibility with that on offense, and then you can go with the Qira Prepared team. You have your core 4 of Qira, L3, Vandor, Chewie, young Lando, and then the 5th can either be young Han Solo or Stormtrooper Han. The team has so much control on offense, and with young Lando developed even at Gear 11, the prepared shared mechanic and his hot hand just makes the team insane on offense, and it kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility of what you have left on offense for Scoundrels. That way you can at least make use of that.
Yeah, I don't have too much experience using these, but I do find them to be super effective, both offensively and defensively. I've had problems losing GAs in the past because of Qira holding me back, so I definitely think that this is a great team to consider in your GA. And up next,
well, and a lot of people have some more of these Scoundrels or some depth in their Scoundrel faction. The Qira team used to be so good on defense, but in a new world with GA championships coming, it has so much more control on offense as opposed to just throwing a team down that has a lot of survivability and revive mechanics. It's just an annoying team, but there's a lot more offensive minded teams now that can counter this team, so you have more control with it on offense.
Yeah, I agree. So now we're going to bring up the Separatists really quickly, if I can figure out where they are. There they are. And Newt Gunray is a new rework to the game. Very recently, him and Count Dooku got a rework, and I do think Newt is going to be an up-and-coming, really solid offense team to counter a lot of different teams, or if you want to put him on defense, really, really good either way, I think. Do you, Zylo, do you think that he's either better offensively or defensively, or just kind of either?
Newt Gunray, depending on if you do or do not have the Zeta on him, just very unique. And yeah, again, this faction, the Separatists in general, have so much depth to the point where you can kind of stretch the droids out with this new faction, or until we see this new Geo rework with Brood Alpha, you have a full Geonosian team that makes a lot of sense on offense. And then Newt Gunray can kind of fall into your Grievous team or a makeshift team with Dooku and some of your leftover droids. If you haven't worked on IG-100, don't do it.
Yeah, definitely stay away from that guy.
I regret that a lot, man. But he's a fun character on offense, and it's fun having the full droid team. So if you have the droid team, it's a great offensive-minded team, and then you can kind of stretch the faction out from there. Whatever's more flexible and controllable. Again, we want to get banners, and we want to have some good hard counters for you on offense as well.
Yeah, and with like the whole new Geonosians getting a rework and a bump in the faction, we really can't go over too much, and I would rather save that for a different video. So for now, I think we will go on to the clones, and with Shaak T being in the game now, because that is a really, really fun team to use offensively. Very similar to, it's really more like an Ewok team, but like on steroids. I mean, there's just so much assists, a lot of TM gain, a lot of retribution. It's just really all around a fun team to use here.
Shaak T definitely gave these clones some steroids for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Like, and the best part too is if you worked on like the Zodi team, like I have, for example, you're finally getting to use these clones, and you're like doing this epic fist pump still to this day, right? Like, you're just like, yes, clone love, yes. So, I mean, and clone sergeants still are heavy, as I should say. Let me give him his justice that CG won't. Heavy clone sergeant, however you want to reference him, he still is a great fit if you take out Rex in that team. So you still have your Rex Wampa team, and then again, it's a very offensive controlled team, and you can walk out with 60 banners. Or maybe once I get my hand on the team, I can do a little more testing. Maybe it's another team we can walk in there with 3 or 4 pieces and get some extra banners as well. So
Yeah, I do think that Clone Sergeant, or Heavy, I guess, is the right term for him. I do think he's a main damage dealer in this team, and he's really, really important under Shaak T. So there you guys have it. Those are a few other teams that we just want to go over really quick, and let's go on. So now that we've been over the main 5 here, Padme, Jedi Revan, Darth Revan, CLS, and Traya, these are the extra teams, the additional teams that you may want to consider using, and what I feel like and what Zylo feels like are the best defensive/offensive teams in the game. So first off, we're going to go down the list here with the defensive. I think Karth teams, Bounty Hunters, and First Order are some of the few defense teams you want to keep in mind here. A lot of different synergies there, and a lot of different Bounty Hunters and First Order. And Karth team is a newer team to add to the GA. I do think that a fully maxed out team with Chahani is great. Do you want to go more in depth about that, Zylo?
Yeah, the full Old Republic team, like once you've gotten Malik and you're past that point of getting through that 17.5 power level, you're going to end up rounding the team into a Gear 12 team anyway. So it's just one of those must-have staple defensive teams long-term, and it requires such a hard counter to go through it, like any of the previous 5 that we mentioned, or at least something equivalent to it at an A- or a B+ team.
Yeah, I do think that some of these are like A- and are close to that. Some of them could be labeled as a B+. These are just still like really great teams you want to consider for defense. So next on the list is going to be Night Sisters and JTR. Night Sisters, definitely want to save those. Or rather, actually, you want to either use them offensively or defensively, depending on like what the opponent has, what you have, and I don't know. Do you want to go and talk about that a little bit more, Zylo?
So yeah, the JTR team definitely offensive-minded. You never
Yeah.
want to put JTR on defense, right? And then Night Sisters, they're very flexible again too. Definitely, I would consider an A- team. Been floating around in the meta for at least years now, and still up there. Not as relevant now, but you know, like one of those offensive-minded hard counters. But it's also so great on defense too. So, and in my opinion, you have, for an offensive-minded team, like if you needed to use Mother Talzin lead or Saj lead, you have that flexibility. And then on defense, Saj lead definitely makes the best sense on defense. And if you have a Gear 12 Spirit in there as the 5th, I really like that team on defense, but it can also counter a lot of teams on offense.
Yeah, Spirit is a really key character in these Night Sisters for sure. All right, so yeah, talking about JTR, just really want to go for offense. Like no really ideas on defense there, just straight up offense. It just, you know, I mean, it makes sense, right? You have like a bunch of different counters. My favorite counter using JTR is Bounty Hunters and Bosk. Man, those guys just rip the Bosk team apart, man, for sure.
Hell yeah, and then JTR modded, you know, with some decent speed, a lot of turn meter game, can counter the first 3 teams that we mentioned too. In general, the Karth team, First Order, Bounty Hunters. So yeah, definitely one of those offensive-minded teams for sure.
Yeah. So we did just talk about JTR and offense, so we're gonna keep that going here with more offensive teams. Next up, I have on the screen Ewoks. And Ewoks are a really easy faction to, in my opinion, gear up, and it really only requires 1 Zeta to work. If you want to go and Zeta Wicket. If you're at a point in the game where you can do that, for sure go for it. But if not, I really recommend not. Just going for the Zeta on Chief Sherpa, but really not going over Zeta here. We're just going to talk about the offensive teams you want to run here. So you want to talk more about Ewoks? You want to, like, what do you want to mention there?
Well, Ewoks definitely offensive minded, right? You don't want to put them on defense and get a nest solo. You're just giving them 64 banners. So do yourself a favor, do yourself that courtesy. And on offense, it works obviously great for First Order. If modded again correctly for the top tiers, it used to be a great counter for some of the meta teams that you would see on defense for Territory Wars back in the day. And I'd still say it's a relevant team just because all you have to do is make Paplu really fast and watch the team fly, and you mod it for a bunch of offense. So it's a great offensive team. You can use it even for a Grievous counter. I've seen a lot of Grievous counters with Ewoks, but it's very situational. Like Elder has to survive, and that's where the team can get a little dicey, but it still serves its purpose on offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right now, I don't have my pop loot up to that standard to use, but I do think that Ewoks are a great offensive team. But other than that, let's talk about Troopers. So for Troopers here, personally, I haven't really used them too much recently in my GAs. I have heard, though, when you have the main 5 here, you want to go for Veers, Trooper, or Death Trooper, Stark. I think is it Shore and Range, or is it somebody else in Range? I know Range is a must-have here, though. With those guys in mind, that can beat a lot of different teams. I know Indigo did a video recently talking about this is the best free-to-play counter, and I think he beat in the video a Darth Revan team, which is awesome to see. So I do think that Troopers are going to be one of the best offensive teams to take out a lot of the not so like meta-dominant teams like the Revans or Padme, but they can definitely beat Night Sisters. They can beat even, let's see, like a Bounty Hunter team. A lot of different teams they can beat. You want to go more in depth there, or you think we're good?
I mean, just like an offensive-minded team again. Those core 5, you can, if you have a little more depth in the Empire, like some players do, you can divvy it up a little bit differently. And you got your like Thrawn Magma counter, and then the Shore Trooper can be over in your Palpatine team, and then you have like the core 5 with Veer, Stark, Range, Shore Trooper, and then Snow Trooper. Those are like kind of your leftovers, really. But that's the most depth. Like if you have all of your troopers at gear 11 or higher, and even still, like if you have that core 5 that we just previously mentioned with Death Trooper and Shore Trooper in there, those are definitely the 5 like pro dominant troopers that you want to have together. But even then, you still have to take them about gear 12 with some of those left side pieces to, go in against some top tier Night Sister team or Bounty Hunter teams. So people are still accustomed to trying that, and then you come out with a prime team, or you have to go back in with a second team. So you just have to remind yourself of a gear check and remind yourself about mods with the team, and it's really fun on offense all the time.
Okay, so these next 2 are some of my favorites for offensive. We're gonna go first for Rex Wampa, and Rex Wampa is awesome because you can pretty much use those 2, take out either a low tier Rebels team, or you could use those versus Ewoks. And then last but not least here, guys, we're going to go and talk about Nest. Nest is very similar to Rex Wampa. Another great solo versus the Ewoks, and you can even sometimes use this to solo a Bastila team, but I tend at my GP level to not see too many Bastila-led teams for Jedi, more towards Jedi Revan teams, and Nest can out-solo those, but Nest can definitely solo a lot of different teams in this game. There you guys kind of have it. We went over the defense and the offense here. Let me know, do you guys think we missed out on some? Did we go over the right ones here? I think with Padme, the main premise of the video, I think you want to really focus on how you want to run Padme. Definitely want to put her offensively, and depending on what you're running, you can kind of swap out the 4th and the 5th, being Yoda, Ahsoka, and 3PO. So, any last words here, Zylo?
I think we did a great job with this, man, and I hope this helps your viewers out, and hope it gives you a little more of a guideline to where to go with GA Championships coming, and hope nothing but the best for everybody out there, and can't wait for Grand Arena Championships, man. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. If you guys haven't, go check out my my buddy Zylo's channel. Great guy, a lot of cool content over there. And other than that, guys, I'll see you later.
Nice.